Hello, and welcome to It's Your Lymph, a podcast about all things immunity, health, beauty, and longevity. I'm your host, Lisa Levitt Gainsler, and I've dedicated my entire career to working with people's lymphatic systems because the results are nothing short of astonishing. Come along as we reconnect to the flow of life and learn how to harness the power of lymph. Welcome back to It's Your Lymph podcast. My very special guest today is Dr. Nigma Talib. She is a naturopath doctor with a practice located in Los Angeles. She is renowned for her contributions to health and wellness. Her expertise and passion for promoting science-based supplements and skincare have generated widespread acclaim. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I've been wanting to speak with you for a long time. We share a client, probably more than one client, and I have seen her skin transform under your care, which has been a real pleasure to watch. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in detail. But before we get deep into the episode, I love doing a couple icebreaker questions. What's your favorite place you've traveled?
Oh, that's a great question because I just came back from it. I just came back from India, and literally it's one of the best places I've ever been to out of everywhere I've traveled to.
I agree with that. I spent 5 months there once, and it has such a deep place in my heart. And tell us why you were there.
So I was there doing a collaboration with an amazing company called Lymph. They're kind of like the Saks Fifth Avenue of India. And they really like to bring in different people for their clients, for their VIP guests. And so they flew me in and I got to see 30 of their incredible members, and they were incredible. We had such a large request that we thought 30 people hopefully will sell out, but we had people on a waiting list, which was so exciting to see that people are so excited about their health and wellness. People are very concerned about that. You know, people are less concerned about buying Prada bags, more concerned about their inner health and wellness. So it was an amazing, amazing journey.
The people in India are so lovely and so generous of their heart and spirit. I love that's one of your favorite places. Second question, if your lymph could talk, what would it say?
It would say, help me.
Why?
Well, you know what? The thing is that, to be honest, we live in a toxic world. And whether we like it or not, as hard as you and I try with all the knowledge we have to support our immune system, to support our lymph doesn't have its own circulatory system pump, right? Our heart pumps and our circulatory system moves through, but our lymph is kind of left to its own. If there's toxins building up, it's going to stay there unless you move it, unless you're exercising super regularly and you're getting treatments from someone like yourself. I just went for a treatment to my traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and she literally gua sha my entire scalp to move the lymph because there was such stagnation from my travel and, eating different foods. And, when we splurge and we drink alcohol or anything like that, it stays, especially in us 50-year-olds, because our hormones are raging and our lymphatic system isn't working as efficiently as it used to. So these kind of treatments really do work and they do help. And so all of us are lymphatically deprived of support.
I love that you talk about the lymphatic system. Did you learn about lymph in naturopathic school, or did you learn about it later? How did it intersect with your knowledge and your career?
So naturopathic medicine is, you go through 8 full years of training, just like a medical doctor would.
Yes.
We have the exact same training, if not more training in nutritional medical science. We have more training in traditional Chinese medicine, botanicals, homeopathy, plus what they do. So anatomy and biochemistry and physiology are part of our basic training as a doctor. So learning about the lymphatic system is already in our training. And then after seeing thousands of patients for the last 20 years, you get to see how people are lymphatically draining and how others are not draining very well. And it's become really big now to go for lymphatic drainage massages because we're seeing that people will like lose 2 dress sizes in one treatment. And so people are like now motivated by that weight loss situation. But just learning that information, can you imagine how much toxicity buildup is in individuals? Like, forget about losing the dress size. Imagine that you've been able to move that lymph out of the system and move the toxins out more effectively and efficiently.
I love what you're saying. I've been studying the lymphatic system for 30 years. So before it was kind of hip and cool and in the mainstream wellness. And a lot of my practice has been working with cancer patients and people's immune system and people who are really challenged health-wise, as well as the beauty aspect. And that's one of the things that I love about you and your work that I really wanted to talk to you about is I love your approach to helping people's skin from within, from understanding what's going on with the gut. So one of the things I love that you talk about different people's faces, wine face or gut face or dairy face, sugar face, and how you can address what our faces are revealing. Can you just talk to us a little bit more about how you came up with those types of faces and what were you seeing in your practice that you can tell is lymphatic?
So my book, Younger Skin Starts in the Gut, which is here in the United States available. I talk about the 4 phases of aging: gluten face, sugar face, wine face, and dairy face. And these 4 phases of aging I created because I kept seeing in patients when they were eating those foods, particular signs and symptoms. Like, for example, dairy face, you would get the darkness under the eyes. And you get that little, and you'll understand this part, they'll get a little bump here, which is a pocket of fluid that sits in the upper eyelid that makes you look puffy. That's dairy face, because we know dairy is inflammatory. So I'm sure when you see your clients that eat a lot of dairy, I'm sure you will see around this area the puffiness. So if you're doing a photo shoot, if you're doing a movie, or you're doing something where your face needs to be snatched and chiseled and looking perfect, it's not going to look that way if you're eating dairy. So I started to see a lot of patients that obviously are on film sets. Not just all my patients are on movies and are actresses and celebrities. However, I have a big chunk of them that are. And I said to them, listen, it doesn't matter what skincare you put on your face. If you're eating this food, you are going to have this inflammatory response. And so they would take these out of their diet and really see that snatched, chiseled, beautiful, glowing skin. And also forget about how they looked. They felt 100 times better. So these 4 phases of aging became really popular amongst my patient group. And so I decided to write a book about it because I kept seeing it over and over again. And I was approached by Penguin Random House to write a book. And I said, listen, I've already written it. You want to see the manuscript? And they said, sure. And I had a book deal in a week.
Amazing.
Very serendipitous and really an exciting journey writing this book.
Yeah, that's so great. I want to get a little deeper into some of the different faces for people in a minute. My last icebreaker question, and not that we need one, but I just want to get this one because I think it'll be important for other people to hear as well. What is your favorite self-care practice?
I've been doing a lot of gua sha on my face, in and around this area, around my eyes, around my scalp and my occiput, because that's where I carry a lot of tension. So I try to do that every day before I go to bed. That's one of my favorite self-care, and also going in the sauna regularly. That's something that I do. Those 2 things I feel like are really game changers. I mean, I do so many other things you wouldn't believe.
Like what? Give us a couple more.
I mean, I do my own treatments on myself. So I'll do a lot of radio frequency. I'll do microneedling with my own PRP, and I'll use exosomes. So I do regular treatments on myself. So I take self-care to like another level, because I know that the shoemaker never fixes his own shoe. And so I wanted to do the opposite of that. I wanted to set the example for my patients that, look, I'm taking care of myself. I'm taking my supplements regularly. I'm eating really healthy. I'm ordering food from health companies that deliver because I don't have time to make it for myself. And so I'm doing the steps that I need to do to be optimally healthy and well, and taking self-care really to another level.
I love it. That's where my book, the book of Lymph, came to be, because I do lymphatic self-massage on myself. all the time. So I have lymphatic self-massage sequences for earaches, sinus aches, headaches, breast care, digestion, sleep, glowing skin, all these things that we can take care of ourselves. We don't have to. It's great to go to somebody, but I love to know that you also are taking care of your skin. So if somebody's just coming to know you, tell us how you got into this field and to becoming a naturopath.
Yeah, I was super, super young when I started to choose this path. One of my family members was a breast surgeon. She's actually a family friend. We just call her part of the family. But I grew up with these people and I was really proud of the work that she was doing. So I knew I wanted to be a doctor. That was first and foremost. As I became a teenager and started to have eczema issues and skin issues and IBS, all that BS diagnosis that I was given by a gastroenterologist, I really learned the path of really getting to the root cause of my issues. And my father's like 411. If you want to know anything, you just have to ask. He knows every answer to every question. He'll look it up. He'll research. And he said, listen, I'm done with sending you to the gastroenterologist and the conventional healthcare model. And this is when I was 13. So over 35 years ago. So he found a naturopathic doctor and I went to go see this naturopathic doctor. We eliminated all my food intolerance. We did a stool analysis to find out who was living in my gut, cleared all of that out. And I literally I think it was 3 months, I was 70% better. And within 6 to 8 months, I was 100% better. It also helped my confidence. It helped my energy. I was super lethargic as a teenager. I wasn't absorbing the nutrients in my foods. I was taking supplements. And that's when I thought, look, I want to be the kind of doctor to get the root cause of the problem. I don't want to be one of those doctors that is sticking a Band-Aid on top of something and, creating more side effects. The real medicine, the real science comes when you figure out the root cause. So from that perspective, a lot of people back then were saying, naturopathic medicine isn't scientific. And I fought against them. And I said, this is actually more scientific than the conventional healthcare model because we're looking at the root cause. We're looking at the cellular level, which above and beyond the conventional healthcare models. And so I was really excited. And that's the field I always wanted to go to. So it stayed within my body to move towards that. And even though, I was more an artsy person and I was into the arts and, I wanted to do acting and singing and film. And I really was torn because for me, I wanted to do something that was going to make a difference in people's lives for me. And as I saw my aunt be this incredible breast surgeon to help cancer patients. So it really worked out to my benefit to become a naturopathic doctor. I think it's the best decision I've made and the most fulfilling career choice.
When someone comes to you, are you mostly doing skin or are you doing a combination? What is your approach with clients and do you see clients virtually and how does that change?
That's a good question. So what I will do is, depending on what the patient is booking in for, most of the time, 90% of the time, they're booking in for consultation for their health and wellness, which is probably surprising to all of you out there because you're probably thinking people coming in for skin, but they automatically always end up doing skin treatments with me. But first and foremost, people are so frustrated at the fact that there's no health support with their conventional GP or even they're at a loss with their current practitioner that they're dealing with. And women are suffering. We go through PMS to perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause. It never ends for us. The thing is that people are frustrated and they're not getting the answers. And they're just being told, go home, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Get on an antidepressant. And that is actually not the answer. And I know that because I'll look at their labs and I'll tell them a completely different story that they got from their other dog. I'll treat them and they will eventually get 100% better. So to me, it's like becoming a biochemical detective with each patient. And some patients will require more time than the others. And you have to explain that to patients that it took you 50 years to get here. Give me some time to work on getting the root cause. And we're going to go in layers, just like an onion has layers. We have layers to your health and wellness that we need to uncover and deal with one by one. And then eventually everything will work together, because the body is one system that works like one system. And if you treat each individual system on its own, expecting to recover, you're not going to get that recovery.
Yeah, I think that the medical health practitioner model has changed into everyone's a specialist and no one's looking at the whole. And I think naturopathic doctors look at the whole. That's the difference too.
We do. And it's such an incredible profession to be in. It's every naturopathic doctor I speak to has such a fulfilling career, because we know we're able to help people and actually get to the root cause. The problem is this is not a lot of the time covered under insurance. It's not,
right.
There's other ways I try to give back. And my goal one day would be to open up something where, I could help more people. But then, we also have to look at, where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your resources on things? What is your priority? So it's up to the patient to work on, themselves. So there's a lot of information you can find out there these days that, you don't have to necessarily see a naturopathic doctor. You can read amazing books.
Like your book, you lay that out for people.
Absolutely. There's a lot of resources online. And, there's a lot of good books. And, I recommend starting with the 4-week plan. That can at least get you started in the right direction, because what we eat is massive. That is the foundation. It's all about eating. Exercise is secondary. I think exercise is super important, but the what you're putting in your mouth is number one.
Okay, let's talk about that. What are some of your favorite foods to benefit the gut, the microbiome, that will have an effect on the skin?
Yeah. So, number one is protein. We all underestimate protein. As we get older, we require more and more protein from animal sources, really important: fish, beef, chicken, and all of a sudden lean protein. For those that are vegetarian, it's a lot more difficult to get your protein. So you really need to work with a nutritionist or a naturopathic doctor at making sure that you're getting your nutritional needs. And it is possible to get that as a vegetarian. You just have to make sure you're doing it right. You just have to do a little bit more work in that area. And you have to make sure that you're supplementing with B12 and folate, because you cannot get that from vegetarian sources. And we need B12 and folate for mitochondrial function, for DNA repair, for cognitive function. The list goes on. Neural function, for brain function.
Right.
So, a lot of the time I'll see a vegetarian and they're in really, really bad health because they're not eating enough nutrients.
Now, before you move on from meat, I want to ask you about where dairy fits in with that, because if dairy does bad things to the face, but dairy is a source of protein, what do you suggest for that?
Yeah, not all animal proteins are created equally. So dairy is one of the proteins that are inflammatory, and we know that. There's a trillion studies in terms of clinical studies within our own clinics with naturopathic doctors. There's more and more research coming out with dairy not doing a body good. And for example, they looked at one study. They looked at the fact that people that actually consumed more green leafy vegetables than dairy actually had lower propensity for osteopenia and osteoporosis. And those that consumed more dairy had higher risk. So there's that whole fallacy about calcium and vitamin D in dairy. It's actually pro-inflammatories. Again, and we're all unique. All of us, some very few lucky people are okay with dairy, and they don't seem to get an inflammatory response. But I'd love to meet those people. I want to know what their constitution is made up of and do some blood work and maybe emulate that, because at the end of the day, everybody loves dairy. It is delicious. It's just, and it's satiating, but it causes a whole inflammatory cascade. And that is the problem with it. If there was a way to make it non-inflammatory, that would be great. But that is one of the animal proteins that is a no-no. And again, not everyone is going to do well with beef or chicken or salmon. So you have to choose your protein that is going to work for you.
Right. Okay. So protein important. What other foods are great for your gut that also will be revealed within the skin?
So some clean, healthy fats are like avocado, nuts, olive oil. So all of those kinds of oils, we need fat. Our brain is mainly made up of fat. So If I called you fathead, that would be a compliment because fat is what makes us smart. Fat is what makes us cognitively optimal. So we need fat. So these kinds of fats are really, really healthy and nutritious. And, obviously staying away from the margarines and the saturated and the trans fats and those kinds of things that are not so healthy in the processed food. Basically anything in a package is not going to be good for you.
Right. And then are there certain vegetables or certain fruits that you think are more beneficial than others?
Yeah, we know berries have a super high ORAC value, which is an antioxidant measuring tool. And we know blueberries, acai, we know raspberries, all of those berry groups are massively high in antioxidants. It's unfortunately like when you blend them, they become sugar. So I always recommend eating them in their whole state and, looking at about a handful of berries a day.
So are you not a shake person?
I've been working with my manufacturer at making my own protein shake for 5 years now. I'm still trying.
It's taken you 5 years to find the right supplement to create.
Yes, and I haven't released it yet, but I'm using it and I'm looking at the benefits. I'm measuring my protein levels. Anything I ever come out with, I always measure and make sure that everything works well and I can remeasure and look at levels and see them change. I don't want to just put on products out on the market just for the sake of putting them out. I want to put them out because it's going to make a change and a difference in people's lives. So I work on that a lot. And the protein powder is one of the most difficult things to come out with.
I've been having a very challenging time finding a good protein powder that doesn't have a lot of things in it that disagree with me. There's a lot of additives in there that you just don't need in the protein powders. I don't really understand why they're there.
They add all these additives in there for shelf life stability, to make it taste good. There's a lot of variables because making a protein powder it's a tough one. I'm working on it.
You're going to get there. You're getting there.
I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know.
I'm excited for it. So we were talking in the beginning about menopause, perimenopause, menstruation, and I'm so curious about different supplements or different ways to support someone's health and vitality and skin through that aging. I don't think enough people are talking about menopause. A lot of people are talking about estrogen and wanting to keep that estrogen level high even after they go through menopause. And I always love asking guests this question because there's a lot of people who are at risk for breast cancer. And so you don't necessarily want to keep pumping estrogen after and bioidentical hormones. And I'm just curious your take on that.
First of all, we are all unique. And this is part of the problem is that if we could have created one mainstream, one size fits all package for menopause, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. So if you and I took a drug right now, say you and I decided to take ayahuasca just for giggles, we would metabolize that drug 1,000-fold differently. Okay, so that is like, first of all, insane that we have such uniqueness to how we metabolize and get rid of things out of our body. Now, how do we get hormones out of our body? Our liver. We need to individualize women's health based on their liver detoxification capacity. So that's number one. The second component is, you're right, there are patients that have had risk factors for breast cancer, but I don't know if you saw in the studies that being on hormone replacement therapy actually lowered risk factors for various cancers and various cardiovascular illnesses. So that scared a lot of women off going off hormone replacement therapy. That was to a lot of women's detriment because a lot of women would then go on to have depression, cardiovascular illness, premature aging illnesses. Estrogen protects our body. It protects estrogen equals vision. We can see better when we have estrogen. We have more energy. Our skin is more supple. It is super important to be on hormones if you don't have hormones. But again, it needs to be monitored and in terms of dose dependent and also making sure that you're on progesterone. Now, do all women need to be on progesterone if they're on estrogen? That's a very good question. Every single person is going to have different varying degrees of prescription. I have some women on very, very small amounts of estrogen and no progesterone because it causes a lot of inflammation chaos. And the reason for that is because their liver is overwhelmed. So I'll work on a tiny bit of kind of homeopathic dose of estrogen, work my way up, work on detoxifying and cleaning out the liver, and then bumping it up. So it is a journey. It's a hormone journey.
I love that. I love hearing you say how gently you approach each person. I really appreciate that.
Yes, and we have to run tests on these individuals. We have to run blood tests and urine tests to evaluate how you're actually metabolizing and breaking down that hormone. Instead of just throwing you on a hormone treatment. It is something that I do with every patient. Yes, it's a lot of work, but you deserve to. Your health is the one thing. We put so much work into our careers and into our everything. But then when it comes to our health, we're like, oh, I don't have time to take my supplements, or I don't have time to investigate or to spend money to evaluate what my hormones are. I find that we are such funny creatures as human beings that it really, once people experience how good it feels to be good, that's when the ball drops and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I waited this long.
Right. I think that is what is happening with people's health in this country, particularly, which is they don't do anything until there's a scary diagnosis. And that is what I love about the field of naturopathy. It's also why I love to work with the lymph system early before there's lymphatic disease or lymphedema, because we need to keep the system running optimally.
Yeah, and what you do is so important to a patient who is on hormone replacement therapy, because if they're having problems eliminating or detoxifying, what you can do is really manipulate that from a physical standpoint and really, with X amount of sessions, really help them, give them like a head start, kind of like charging a car battery that's dead, driving it around for a little bit, getting that battery to operate again. I think some things that you do are super important and people can really, really benefit from that.
So what other lifestyle tips do you recommend? We have exercise, we have eating healthy.
I think the key is to calm the mind. Our mind is super powerful. And a lot of people, I know brain health is becoming also something really important that people are now starting to get on the bandwagon of, which I think is important. And we have to think of the brain as if you're overusing it and abusing it, it's going to say bye-bye. So we need to incorporate things like meditation. I always say meditation is my medication. It's one of the pills that I take, even if it's just for 12 minutes. It's just shutting down the mind. Now, everybody worries about this and says, I can't meditate. I can't keep my mind, shut my brain off. You have to let go of that and just let your brain travel. But just take that 12 minutes every day, whatever time works for you. And I like to do it in bed. I like to meditate.
I love that.
Just because I'm super lazy. So I like to lie in bed with my dog and meditate. And I find I use like a self-guided meditation. Either I'll do the Kirtan Kriya, which is a Satanama. I will follow a guided meditation. It depends on what mood I'm in, but it really, really helps. And it helps switch your sympathetic nervous system into your parasympathetic, into this calming, where you can digest better, where you've got more improvement of blood flow to the muscles. All of those things can really highly benefit you lifestyle-wise.
So many of the things you're recommending are the pillars that I talk about with lymphatic health. And I just want our listeners to be aware of, when you are taking care of your health, you are, as I say all the time, you're also taking care of your gut health. You're taking care of your brain health. So I also talk about exercise, sleep, meditation, calming the mind, de-stressing. We know stress is so inflammatory, eating right, and doing some kind of self-care practice. For me, I love lymphatic massage, whether it's gua sha, all these things are so important. So I so appreciate your perspective on that. Now, the things I really want to get a little nerdy and a little more detailed about are the different faces that you mentioned in your book. We talked about dairy face. So I want to talk about gluten face, wine face, sugar face. I think that those are the 4 faces in your book, correct?
Correct.
Everyone out there is going to start freaking out. But I also love that you say it's like 80-20.
That is true. That is true. The next phase, gluten phase, that is in eating basically barley, rye, oats, spelt, kamut, wheat. All of those have gluten in them. Now you can get gluten-free oats for those of you oatmeal lovers, so don't fret. But gluten has been shown to be very difficult to digest. And, farming has changed over the past 100 years. I know if you eat a piece of bread in Italy versus a piece of bread here, you're going to get a completely different reaction, including the pasta. So, that's why people who don't do well with gluten, who then will have, a pasta in Italy will say, oh, that was delicious. And I didn't have a tummy ache. But what I'm alluding to here is it is very hard to digest. It can cause inflammation. It can cause intestinal permeability, which can lead to the puffiness of the skin. It can cause patches of skin on the chin. It can cause hyperpigmentation. It can affect hormones. It can affect inflammation and autoimmune conditions. So gluten is a no-no. So that was the next phase, and that I talk about. Then the one after that is the sugar phase. Now, I don't mean that in a sweet way. Sugar phase is a pretty nasty one because all the women are going to go, huh? Once I say this, sugar causes your skin to sag. Just remember that. S for sugar, sagging. And the reason for that is it's got these glycation processes that basically make the collagen molecule not functional. And so when it does that, it causes your skin to sag and it causes oxidative stress in the body. Not to mention it causes suppresses your immune system, causes candida infections, it causes gastrointestinal dysbiosis. So sugar is a no-no and will cause your skin to sag prematurely. I can promise you that.
And wine face.
Wine and sugar are kind of like the evil twins, right? So wine is basically fermented sugar. And we know that all the research on alcohol being healthy for us is not true. Sadly, a lot of people that say, oh, well, they said wine is healthy for you. I completely disagree. It is not. And I'm not going to say that I never have wine and I never have alcohol. I do like to every now and then on occasion. I've really changed a lot in the last 5 years in terms of getting it out of my diet more and more.
Me too.
I think living in the UK was like a different lifestyle from when I moved here to LA. So it's been beneficial for my health, but I've enjoyed drinking alcohol every now and then into my lifestyle, but it's less and less. And there is nothing good about wine in the body, really.
But what about, do you see similar effects in the face with tequila or mezcal or?
Yes, I do. You're not going to get as many gastrointestinal side effects if you have pure alcohols. It just depends on how much you're having. So then it depends on quantity and alcohol percentage. So if you have one tequila versus one glass of wine, I almost prefer the tequila because it's cleaner. It's not going to cause as much fermentation. And, you'll know that by just not having a hangover the next day.
Right.
If you had a tequila versus a glass of wine, a lot of people notice the sulfites, also the fermentation of the sugar in the gut. So there is a difference. And I do talk about that in my book in terms of the clean, if we want to call them clean alcohols.
Now, moving on, different subject, I want to talk to you about the sun, because I know that our mutual client, you really helped transform her skin. And I remember there were times where I would see her and she was not allowed to go into the sun. I am such a sun seeker. I know it's not ideal for my skin. I don't take great topical care of my skin. I think the only reason why I don't have as much acne now, or I have any, my skin is, passable, is because I take care of my gut and I do lymphatic massage, but I'm not so good with topical things. And also my skin is, it does seem better if I'm swimming a lot. We should get vitamin D. So talk to us about that.
So unfortunately, the sun is not going to give you the vitamin D that you need. We have really, really high demands on vitamin D. Vitamin D is found in every cell in your body. And so we use it for everything. And the vitamin D receptors are everywhere. Most of us, I would say, are deficient in vitamin D. you would need whole body sun exposure for 20 minutes a day. So I doubt that you're sitting naked and on your balcony for 20 minutes a day, top and bottom, 20 minutes each side. And number two, it can be if you have a predisposition for cancers, there are high risks to sitting in the sun, and skin cancer are on the rise. So, and also the ozone layer and all of that, climate change, we can go on and on. There is a larger toxicity of when we're having sun exposure on our skin, it damages our skin. And so it also causes premature aging. It causes hyperpigmentation issues. So those are the issues with the sun. I do think it's so important to sit in the sun a little bit and enjoy that heat on the body and being in nature. And there is a fine line. And I think, each of us is unique. Like I have a higher melanin component. So, I'm not going to get as high risk for skin cancer versus a Caucasian skin would, or a Caucasian skin that has predisposition towards skin cancer. So again, we're all different, but what will happen to my skin is I will get hyperpigmentation, right? So I will get spots and pigmentation in certain areas, and those are very hard to get rid of. You've got to do IPL and peels and, certain antioxidants, vitamin C, high dose vitamin C on the skin. So it is a lot to get rid of once you damage it. It's not impossible, but once again, there is some pros and cons for being in the sun.
So I don't know if I'm dairy faced, but my main issue, when I come see you, you'll tell me what my main issue is, but I get really bad bags under my eyes, and they're not dark circles, but they're puffiness. And I don't know if it's just from dairy. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat a lot of gluten. I'm pretty clean, but I can't quite figure out what it is that I get such puffiness under the eyes.
So are you eating dairy?
I am, not a lot though. I don't snack on dairy. Cream I do have every day.
Okay, so you're having dairy every single day. That could be one of the reasons why.
That's dairy face.
Yeah, so cutting out the dairy for 6 weeks. And then, I always recommend people take photos, because we are so easy to forget how things looked before and how things look after. So I would stop the dairy, do the lymphatic treatments on yourself, and watch that here.
There's going to be 2 last questions before we do our closing segment. Coffee, yes or no?
Coffee it depends on the person. A cup of coffee a day, if it's the first thing you start with, that's terrible. Coffee shouldn't be the very first thing that goes in your body. You should have protein and real food, and then you can have coffee. It affects the nervous system. It causes cortisol spikes, blood sugar spikes. So start with food first, and then have a cup of coffee. And if it doesn't suit you, don't do it.
Coffee totally agrees with me, but I'm going to start doing it black. Okay. What are you excited for this year? What's next for you? What are you looking forward to in 2023?
Yeah, I'm excited for 2 new products to come out. I've got my Super Vitamin C serum, which again has taken years to make, and my Super Vitamin C cream that I'm coming out with. So I'm really excited for those 2 new products to come out and, launching in different places and different areas of the world. I know I'm launching in Qatar. And in the Middle East, I'm launching all the product lines there because there's a huge demand. So that is happening this year. So I'm super excited about all of these launches and in different countries that I get to go and visit and see different. Life couldn't be better.
That's a dream. I love that. Okay, this is my closing segment we like to call In and Out of Flow. So what does being in flow feel like to you? I
think being in flow feels when something is too complicated and you're going back and forth and you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, that's when you're not flowing, and that universe is telling you to stop pushing and let it go. And so being in flow is letting things go and flowing and keep going. It's just don't stop, but keep going, and don't maybe go in that direction. Maybe make a right instead of a left. I love that. And what do you do to bring yourself back in flow? I just really follow my gut. And I'm doing that more and more as I get older and starting to understand that my gut doesn't lie. So I love this. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. Please tell us where we can find you, how we get your products, and everyone is going to get your book. And do you work with people virtually? My website is healthydoc.com, and my products are in Saks, Fifth Avenue, Goop, Poosh. We have 13 Lune. We have a lot of distributors in Spain, Natalia de la Vega, which is Tatcha Beauty in Spain that carry the line. We have Kioro in Qatar, Doha, Qatar. So you can go, if you're in different parts of the world listening, you can go to those individual distribution. And also you can go to my website as well if you want to have a look at products.
And on Instagram, where can we find you on social media?
It's Dr. Nigma Talib. And the question was, do I do virtual consultations? I don't accept any new patients at the moment. It's just fully booked unless you have a referral from your practitioner or by another patient, then you get put on a wait list. So it's just about me resolving patient issues. And as soon as I resolve those issues, I take in a next batch of patients. I don't want to be overwhelmed by the quantity of patients, and I want to treat each patient individually. So my goal is not to stuff in a ton of patients and accept a ton of new patients because that's not physically possible.
Yes, and that honors yourself. I love that.
Honoring myself, and I'm honoring you. And I'm not trying to create a telemedicine community where I can't follow up. And I know my business is not scalable, but to me, it doesn't matter because I want to help as many people as I can. And I feel like I'm helping more people by having my wait list and then getting to the next batch. And I'll get to you eventually. It just might take some time. Book in the meantime, right? So
exactly. Buy her book in the meantime. And is there a database of naturopaths that you recommend?
Yeah, you can go to the American Naturopathic Association, and there's amazing naturopathic doctors. You know, just look them up in your area. And thank you for bringing that up. You don't have to wait for me. There's incredible naturopathic doctors, and they are the real functional medicine practitioners. So, you know, functional medicine is only called functional medicine because those that didn't go to naturopathic school, that's what they call themselves, right?
That's what they call themselves.
I think they're great. It's just that it's my profession. That's what we do. Like, we don't have another name for ourselves.
I love that. Okay, really quick before you go, teenagers, what do you recommend for teenagers?
The exact same thing.
I had a feeling you were going to say that, but I just had to ask that.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. So there's no discrepancy. We are all of the recommendations I put in my book is pretty much for most age groups.
Everybody get her book. It's called Younger Skin Starts in Your Gut. It's available on Kindle. And thank you so much, Dr. Nigma, for being here today. It was such a pleasure. You're just so beautiful and knowledgeable from the inside out and so wise. And it's important that people have this information. So I just can't thank you enough for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.